Okay. Today I'm going to speak a little bit on Sri Lankan political situation as I see it. Now, on Friday, last Friday, there was the meeting. And that meeting was mainly based on Namal Rajapaksa, but it was a meeting, in my opinion, it was a meeting done against Sajid Premadas. So, Namal Rajapaksa is trying to take back the initiative. And if you take the Samagi SPG or something, they didn't cooperate with it because they realized that this meeting was not necessarily done against the JVP, but it was done more towards Premadas, Sajid Premadas. Okay? Now, the second aspect was people came to kind of honor Mahinda Rajapaksa. Mahinda Rajapaksa මහත්තයා තමයි ආවේ. ඒකට මට කවුරු හරි කිව්වා නෑ මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මහත්තයා වෙන්නේ මොනාර තියනවනේ ඒක ඔය බණ්ඩාරරායක සම්මන්ත්‍රණ ශාලාවේ හරි මොකක් හරි තියන්න ඕනේ. එහෙම අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ. අපිට අපේ රටේට හරියන්න හදාගන්න. දැන් මම අද කියන්නේ නේද some of them are very controversial. Okay? දැන් මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ මට ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම මම දැන් විශ්‍රාම ගිහලා අවුරුදු 3ක් විතර වෙනවා. 3ක් හරි කීයක් හරි. මට ප්‍රශ්නය ආවේ ඉන්දියාව කොහොමද බ්‍රිතාන්‍ය පාලනය කරේ? ඉන්දියාවේ රටක් තිබෙන්නේ නැහැනේ. ඕකේ රාජ්‍යයක් තිබ්බේ 300ක්ද කොහෙද තිබ්බේ මිනිස්සු රටක් හදලා. ඒ කියන්නේ ඉන්දියාව කියන්නේ දැන් තියෙන ඉන්දියාවත් නෙමෙයිනේ. ඉන්දියාවයි පාකිස්තානයයි බංග්ලාදේශයයි එහෙමනේ තිබ්බේ. හරිද? එතකොට මේ මිනිස්සු කොහොමද ඉන්දියාව පාලනය කරේ? හමුදාවක් හිටියට මේ මිනිස්සු ඉන්දියාව පාලනය කරේ ඉස්කෝලවල. ඒ ඉස්කෝල තමයි ඒ ඉන්දියාව පාලනය. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් අපේ රටට මං කියනවා ටික දරුණු කතාවක් කියනවා මිනිස්සු මං කියන එක පිළිගන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් අපේ රටේ රජයේ පාසල් වල ගත්තොත් රොයල් කොලෙජ් එකනේ පිළිගන්නේ. ඇත්ත තත්ත්වය ඕකනේ. දැන් අපේ රටේ රොයල් කොලෙජ් එකක් තියෙන්න බෑනේ. හරි? අපේ රාජකීය පවුල අර බ්‍රිතාන්‍යයේ ඉන්න කාලකන්ණි. දැන් බ්‍රිතාන්‍ය කියන්නේ මේ ජෙනොසයිඩ් එකට සම්බන්ධයි. හරි? ඇමරිකාව වගේම බ්‍රිතාන්‍යත් ජෙනොසයිඩ්. ඒගොල්ලෝ ජෙනොසයිඩ් කරනවා against Palestinians. දැන්ටත් කරනවා. ඔත්තු බලනවා ඒක ස්පයි දැන් ඔය if you take this Epstein files, some of the things are coming out. How these people use bank money to finance certain spy network and some of the weapons also. Once you produce those weapons, they it is used in Gaza. Because there is no restrictions. You can, I mean, it's not like doing in the lab. Weapons, spyware, everything. It is financed by banks, right? And there are certain people who are in America, they have some Jewish lobby inside there. So these weapons, spyware, everything, once they test it in Palestine. එතකොට මේ අපේ රටේ ඉස්කෝල තියෙන්නේ ඒක බටහිරට ඕන විදිහට තමයි මේවා හදලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒකට අපේ රටේ රෝල් කොලෙජ් තියෙන්න බෑනේ. ඒ රෝල් කොලෙජ් එක තියෙන්නේ මොකටද? ඒ රෝල් කොලෙජ් එක තියෙන්නේ මේ මං කියන එක ටිකක් controversial. they going to be controversial. ඇයි අපේ රටේ රෝල් කොලෙජ් එක තියෙන්නේ? ඒක අර හීනමානය ඇති කරන් තමයි දීලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ නැත්තම් මං අහන්නේ බ්‍රිතාන්‍ය කොහොමද ඉන්දියාව පාලනය කරේ ඉස්කෝලවලින්? එතකොට දැන් අපි මේ ඇවිල්ලා වැඩ කරන්නේ ඇමරිකාට හරි බ්‍රිතාන්‍යයට අවශ්‍ය විශේෂ නිදේශමක් තමයි අපි හදන්නේ. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ තියෙන අතික්‍රමයට ගැලපෙන්න තමයි මේක හදන්නේ. මම කියන්නේ මේවට යන්න එපා මේ කියන එක නෙමෙයි මම කියන්නේ. මම කියන්නේ you have to go beyond this. You can get knowledge from anywhere. I mean, I am not against it. Even from the British you can get knowledge, from the Americans you can get, but you have to go beyond that. That's my whole argument. And these things I thought about these things. Now it is බ්‍රිතාන්‍යයේ ඉන්න ඔය රාජකීය කාලකන් රාජකීය පවුල තමයි අපේ රජපෞල ඉන්නවා. ඊට පස්සේ උන්ගේ රජපෞල සමරන්න මේ රටේ මේ ඉස්කෝල දැම්මා. ඒතකොට ඒක දාලා තින්නේ අර මේක පාලනය කරන. අනිත් ඒකෙන් අර හීනමානය ඇති කරනවා. එහෙම එකක් තියෙනවා කියන්නේ. හොඳේ. ඒ හීනමානෙන් තමයි මේක පාලනය කරන්නේ. හරිද? ඒක දැන් ඔය හරිද? මේකෙන් තමයි පාලනය කරන්නේ. එතකොට ඒ නිසා ඒක අපි තේරුම් ගන්න ඕනේ මේ අපේ රටට බොහොම දරුණුම දේ තමයි මේ රටේ තියෙන ඉස්කෝල පද්ධතිය. ඒක හදලා තින්නේ ඒක බටහිරට ආර්ථික ක්‍රමයකට ගැළපෙන විදිහට. හරි? ඒකේ ඉගෙන ගන්න එක නේ මම කියන්නේ ඒක ඉගෙන ගත්ත එකට එහා යන්න ඕනේ. You have to go beyond that, right? You can't finish your education from here. It should be the starting place. I am not against people studying in this school, but I don't think it has to go beyond that. Okay? So I have stressed about these things, and I think we should, when you are naming schools also, we should see whether it creates inferiority complex or something like that. Then you have to change certain things. It has to be done legally, but after long discussion, you have to change it. Right? So I have this troubling thing. How did the British rule India? Okay. Now of course the population is skewed more towards the Indians. Indians have about something like 1.4 billion, and Britain has only about 70 million people. Earlier the ratio was little bit more favor of the British, because in Britain the population increase was less. You take the percentage was less. So during that time it was not this. If you take the ratio, it's much more favor of the British. So the British rule our country by schools and universities, and naming of these schools also done away to give some kind of inferiority complex. That's my understanding. That's my thesis on this. So you have to look at this, and I think when we create knowledge, it has to go beyond this Western agenda. I don't mind people studying in these places, but then people have to go beyond this. Right? You have to get. I don't mind people getting knowledge from anywhere. Any system, Russian, Chinese, but you have to go beyond that. That's my contention. That's what I'm trying to say. So now this again I say that this Friday political rally, 21st of November, it was done against Mr. Sajid Premadasa, not necessarily JVP. JVP is two birds. Mainly it was done, that's my understanding. Okay? And it was a rainy day, so of course there are some complaints about the speakers, the quality of speakers. Now අපේ රටේ අර මේ තිරිකුරාමලේ යම් කිසි සිද්ධියක් වුණා. ඒක ගැන කතා කරන්නේ නැහැ කවුරු. එහෙම බෑ කතා කරන්න. කතා කරලා මොකද්ද උනේ කියලා මිනිස්සු දැනගන්න ඕනේ. හරි ඒ මම කියන්නේ ගිහිලා ගහන්න ගිනි තියන්න හරි මේ හානි කරන්නේ නෙමෙයි. මිනිස්සුන්ට කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් තරමේ මැචියුරිටි එකක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. මේවා කතා කරන එක නවත්තලා ඒ තේරුම් නැති. I mean you have to always confront the problem, then only you can solve it. If you don't speak about it, then you can't do it. You can't solve it. You just kick the can down the road. That's all. So that means you don't have the maturity to handle these things. Okay? So I am saying that. So we have two peace processes in Gaza and in Ukraine. Now there was something saying that in Bosnia-Herzegovina there it would have been another kind of war, and Donald Trump is some of the experts on this. That is in Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia. That Donald Trump's regime has refused it because the British were trying to. The British have the agenda because that was a superpower earlier. That they still have this agenda that they want to carry out. So, if you take the Palestinian thing, it was done by the British. It was so they have an agenda which is much more, sometimes much more sinister than the British American thing. So there is a person, expert person, who said that in Bosnia Herzegovina that there was some there could have been violence, and Donald Trump's regime has intervened in that, and they have stopped it. They have tried to diffuse it. So I don't know whether that might be true, and that there is no news about these things and all that. Okay, so this is some good thing I heard about Donald Trump's. Usually, Mr. Donald Trump is promoting war. He's trying to invade Venezuela and all that. Okay. So, but in this case, now, if you take the Mandani case, what they are saying is that Mandani cannot confront Donald Trump anymore. So some people say it is kind of, Mandani has kind of surrendered to Donald Trump in a way. In a way, that is what Mr. Obama says, right? Locator Barack Obama says that Donald Trump has kind of neutralized Mandani. So we see. Of course, if you take Obama's cabinet was chosen by a bank. His cabinet was recommended by a bank. Certain banks send the list, and he appointed all that. So what Barack Obama says, Locator Barack Obama says, you can't judge Mandani, because the problem is Mayor of New York, he doesn't have much power. He doesn't have much legal power. So he depends on he depends on the president and so forth. He depends on the federal government. So he might not be able to, whatever he promised, he might. But what he had promised, it can be used as an agenda for the next president. So I don't think Donald Trump might have neutralized him. There's a possibility, but his agenda is still there. Okay? So next president, the person who will come in next, can take some of this agenda and press it forward. So maybe Mandani might be a failure. If you take the young people made a huge contribution to his victory. So they might be disappointed. He might not be able to implement any of these things because it is the governor who has the power, not the mayor. Mayor has some power. So we'll see. Of course, there will be elections for other positions in New York. So it's something which is to be decided by the elections which are going to be held in the future in New York. Right? So I spoke about the rally, and it was not there are some deficiencies when you come to the speakers. They were not. They didn't have a good agenda. What they should have spoken about. And Mr. Vimal Veeravansa mentioned about this, right? And sometimes they don't address the real issues. So there was this shortcoming in the rally on Friday. Now, if you take Basil Rajapaksa, sometimes people used to ridicule him regarding his qualification. Now, if you take D.S. Seranayake, although not that qualified person, so he was considered to be a good leader. This qualification is actually it is a Western. It's a creation of the West. If you take our schools and our universities, so I'm not saying not to get qualification. I would never say that to anybody, but it doesn't. Those things are designed for their economic benefits. The West designs these things for their economic benefits, whether it is law or knowledge or anything. That's how it is done. Okay, this so-called qualification. So I don't think you should ridicule people. And if you take Basil Rajapaksa, he worked with Mr. Gamini Sanayaka. So he's different from other Rajapaksa. He also has this kind of neo-liberal agenda. So it's quite different from other Rajapaksa members of the Rajapaksa. And that, I think, this division came with this Mrs. Sirima Bandaranaike, and you had that, there was this division in the Mr. Jayajayawardena exploited some divisions in the SRFP. And so Mr. Basil Rajapaksa worked with Mr. Gamini Sanayaka. Okay. So I think he has a tendency to be moved towards neoliberalism. So all Rajapaksa are not the same, He might be the same mother and father, but their political outlook is different. Okay, so this is something each person is different. Even if they are of the same family, their economic outlook is quite different. Okay, and I think at one time he was a member of the UMP, Basil Rajapaksa. That is when Sirima Bandaranaike was there. Okay, but Mahinda was always, it has the leftist agenda, and Mahinda was with the Palestinians. Okay, now this government has abandoned the Palestinians. So I had to tell, that's something I forgot to tell, unlike Mahinda Rajapaksa. And if you take the so-called peace initiative done by Donald Trump is a very negative peace, because if you take Gaza is divided in two parts, and one part is for so-called real estate development. Now, when we had tsunami in our country, these things came, that developing beachfront property and things like that agenda is there. Whether it is Sri Lanka or Palestine or anything, you have that. So that's because of the education system, whether it's schools or universities, it's because the education system, when we teach something, it is taught mainly to satisfy the West, their political and economic agenda. Okay, that's how the things work out. Okay, so I spoke about the rally. Now, if you take the opposition in Sri Lanka, they don't have good speakers, so there is some drawback there, right? So that is something they don't stress on vital points or anything like that. They just speak to the gallery like thing. So there is deficiency when you take the opposition political parties in this country. They don't address the issues. So I think people expect much more than that, little bit more than that. So my understanding of the rally is different. I think it was done against Mr. Sajid Premadasa. He took back the initiative for the Rajapaksas, and it was kind of a success. I wouldn't say it's, and this government is only 1 year old, so you can't have a severe rally against this government. So and it was on a rainy day, so there are a lot of negative things and positive things. That's my understanding, and I'm telling I don't accept neoliberalism because now we know that most of the European countries are bankrupt. Okay, most of them bankrupt. They are printing money and they want to carry out this war. If you carry out the Ukraine war, then you have to cut down on a lot of social benefits in Europe. So people will rise up again. So I don't know how the European Union is going to handle that. There will be a lot of repression, and some political candidates will be, they will be disqualified on certain, saying that they are fascist or something like that. So you are going to have severe backlash in Europe. Okay, so that's. I think we have to study what is happening in Europe because we have to learn from those things. What is where there's backlash, we have to learn why it is. Now, Mr. Donald Trump has some kind of understanding with Mr. Putin, right? So he is a little bit different from other. I mean, he makes a lot of he criticizes a lot of, but down under he kind of negotiates with these people. Sometimes he might say you are a fascist or something like that, but in the background he might negotiate with you after calling you a fascist. So there is a lot of difference between what Mr. Donald Trump says and what he does. And he is supposed to have diffused situation in Bosnia Herzegovina. Okay, it could have been because some of the European countries were trying to start war. They want to start war in there because they want to start a second front against the Russians. So this is not something mentioned in our press or anything like that. Okay, because people say they always highlight the negative things of Donald Trump. So this is something I learned from another person. It might be true. So there are certain countries in Europe who want to project their image. I mean, which is no longer there. Especially Britain, they want to kind of project their image. So, I mean, they were kind of superpower some 100 years ago, not anymore, but they are making certain. I mean, they are using this thing divide and rule concept. Okay, so I touched upon Mr. Namal Rajapaksa. Then I think we should be able to discuss anything. Whether it's what happened in Trincomalee, I don't think you should have. If you can't discuss anything, that means we are not mature enough to handle it. So then there's something wrong. Okay, as long as you don't promote violence, you should be able to discuss anything. Okay, then I talked a little bit of this in Europe. What there was some instability, and some of the instability that have been kind of diffused a little bit. War can still break out in Bosnia Herzegovina. But, Donald Trump government has made some taken positive steps with regards to tension in the area. Then I talked about the Friday meeting. Then I talked about the education system. And I talked a little bit of the what is Namal Rajapaksa is up to, what he was trying to do. And I also talked about the education system, how the British used the education system to give inferiority complex, and that affects us. It still affects us. in the country. Okay.